So, there are several myths and facts that are out there about adoption, and today I'm going to talk about some of the bigger ones that I've come across. And we're going to do that today on All About Adoption. Hi, I'm Stephanie A. I am the founder and executive director of Adoption and Beyond, and I hope hopeful adoptive families bring home the child of their dreams through adoption. So I'm going to start with the 10 different myths and facts. Myth number 1 is that birth parents will regret their decision of adoption for the rest of their life. And the fact is that an expecting, or I should say a birth mom, does have grief and does have loss with adoption, but far majority of the women who choose adoption, particularly if there's an open adoption, they do well with their grief process, especially if they get the support and the counseling that they need afterwards. And when there's an open adoption, it really helps them move through their grief process and being able to continue to see their child as their child grows. There's a myth that expecting mothers are uncaring and they'll soon forget about their child after they place them for adoption. That is simply not true. Most mothers do love their children and are making this adoption plan because they feel this is what's best for their child. Myth number 3 is that adoption damages a child. While there is trauma and loss with adoption, it doesn't necessarily damage the child, particularly if they are raised in a good adoptive home, who have an open relationship with the birth family and are able to address the child's questions as they grow, and they're able to have answers about why were they placed, who they look like, where they get their musical abilities from. Children do very well in adoption when adoption is done well by the adults in their life. So another myth is that the adoption process is secretive, and that is simply not true nowadays. There is far majority of adoptions are open and there are not secrets to the adoption process. Another myth is that families over the age of 40 don't qualify for adoption, and that is not true. Most adoptions usually end up happening with families who are in their 30s and 40s, sometimes 20s, sometimes 50s, but far majority of families fall in the adoption age range of 30 to 40 years of age. So myth number 6 is that it takes years to do the adoption process, and that's not true. So most families adopt within 2 years, particularly families who take the time to really network themselves, work with several different professionals at the same time. It just really opens up more doors for them to have their profile presented to expecting moms and for them to be chosen and placed with a child. Another myth is that families who are already parenting do not qualify for adoption, and that is not true. There are a number of families who are already parenting children, whether they're biological or whether they're adopted. They are able to adopt because it's really up to the expecting mom to choose the family that she wants. In fact, I was just recently interviewing a family who already had 3 biological children, and that was very appealing to the expecting mom who chose them and ended up placing with them. That is what she wanted. So just because you're parenting other children does not disqualify you from adopting. Another myth is that children who are of another race are only placed with families of that same race. And that is not true. There are transracial adoptions. Actually, there's quite a few transracial adoptions. There are unique circumstances that families need to go through in terms of education to prepare themselves, because not everybody is ideal parent for a transracial adoption, but with the right preparation and the right mindset, a lot of families will do quite well for children who are adopted transracially. And before I get to number 10, I wanted to say, please be sure you hit the subscribe button and be sure you give us a thumbs up. That really helps our channel and really helps me in being able to bring you videos each week. So number 10 is that single parents cannot adopt, and that is not true. There are a lot of single parents who are able to adopt. So if you're single, don't let that deter you from being able to do the adoption process. So I hope you found these 10 myths and facts helpful, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks. Bye.